pleasure having you here, man. Like I told you
Thank you for having me.
I just told you just a second ago, I've been a huge fan for a while, so it's awesome being able to talk to you. When you first started, you were making completely different music. You weren't really making like the trap kind of dubstep sound you are now. You were more in the hip hop lane, right?
Yeah, so when I originally first started, I was doing just a lot of like hip hop stuff, just like classic, like trying to produce like Dilla, like boom
Hmm.
bap, like beats like that. And then slowly but surely, kind of just found the like Lex Lugers and like the Zaytovens, TM88, Southside, like all those dudes, and then like started doing stuff like that, and then like the integration of like where that stuff
Hmm.
started to almost like push into electronic music, is where like everything really kind of came together for me,
That's awesome. How was that transition from that into like EDM? Like, what was kind of, did you make a conscious decision or was it kind of just evolve into that?
It was all like it was like an overnight thing, really. When I was doing like beats and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or like mainly that was like earlier. That was like 2012. When I started like doing electronic music, that was like 2014. When I was doing all the beats and stuff, 2012 was my senior high school.
Okay.
So that was when names like Arl Grime, Brosafari, Bauer all started to pop up in the scene. And then like I started hearing that stuff, and like a lot of my friends were showing me that stuff. I remember my one friend was just like, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is kind of like a different take of like, like whatever's happening with like Skrillex and all those names at the time they were doing dubstep. And he was like, yeah, everyone just calls it trap. And in my head, back in that time, I didn't like. I knew trap as trap. I knew trap as Team 88,
Right.
Southside, stuff like that. Like those guys, they were making
Yeah.
trap. So when everyone was like, "This is trap too," I was just like, interesting. Like they, I liked how they kind of were like, "This is the inspiration," and everyone saw it. So that was
I've
like
always
where it
been
kind of came.
when I knew that because that's kind of how I learned about trap too. I knew like the OG like almost hip hop trap, and then the bass music like EDM trap. I was like, wait, but I'm confused. So for the people that don't know, can you give a little breakdown of like what the difference is?
So like where trap comes from, or like I can only say so
Right.
much because from my perspective, like as like an East Coaster in general, it's like that stuff is not really like, or at least Northeast, like that stuff wasn't really popular for me. But like kind of the idea of trap in the sense of where it started was like that Atlanta shit, where it's
Yep.
just like all those beats that you heard from dudes like Lexay, all of 808 Mafia, all that stuff, where it was like Future, Gucci Mane, Waka Flocka, all that stuff. That is like where trap originated. That's like where the sound started and everything like that. And then EDM trap came along, and that was various amounts of names. Some dudes who like started and now make other genres.
Carnage.
But I think lo and behold, the dude who like,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But even him, he was pretty like, I wouldn't say he was late. He was just later than most people because it started with that trap era of like RL Bauer, this, that, and the third, like all those dudes that were doing like that real
Hmm.
OG shit that was coming out mad decent, like Uzi and all
Yeah.
them,
Uzi's OG. Yep.
Heroes and Villains. Yeah, exactly. And then it switched into, okay, cool, let's do like festival
Hmm.
trap. And that was where I really kind of like, that was where I made my first mark, was in the festival trap lane, was just like doing remixes of like big room songs. And then like, it just became so popular at some point where like all the big room dudes were just like starting to play trap. Like even there was like that one song that Tiesto played, like was
Oh
playing
yeah.
out like a shit ton. It was like a
Yep.
trap song. Um, and I remember that coming out, and I remember thinking to myself, like, this is a really big record because it was like one of the first like big like festival trap original
Yep.
songs because everything was remixes and edits before that, and that like made a mark. But like I feel like after that, the decline went like crazy. It was just so nuts. I don't know. This shit changed so fast in that lane,
It definitely
and
did.
like there's so many people that like I thought were gonna have like these crazy careers that like didn't adapt further. They didn't adapt anything past that.
Which is,
Yeah.
I think you've done a very good job with. Is now a lot of the trap artists are now releasing kind of and working closely side by side with like the dubstep industry, and you've very much evolved well
Hmm.
into that. How long had you been producing? You said you started EDM in like 2014, right? So it's been like 2 years that you've like really been working in like a DAW
Yeah.
software.
So since Like this is literally like my 10th year.
Okay.
So this is like, you know what everyone says it takes 10 years to become an overnight success in a sense. This is my 10th year. And like I came into this year like thinking about that and I laughed it off. Right? But I really do think that like a lot of the things that I've seen from this year have proved a lot to like me and just like the people around me too. That like, maybe like, yeah, like I wouldn't say the overnight success is like happening, but I like really like want to take advantage of everything that's about to happen. I think there's just a lot of people who don't understand that. They think everything just like kind of just happens and boom, you're just doing it, There's definitely a pretty long process behind everything.
And it's hard starting out not understanding that. We're like, oh, anything can happen, but then it's like you're like, oh, maybe I'll be different or whatever, and then and then eventually you're like a couple of years in, you're like, okay, yep, this is gonna take some time.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think one thing that I talk about a lot to people, because I do a lot of like lessons with people and like mentoring with kids, and one thing I always talk to them about, I was like, as long as you're satisfied with your project, as long as you're satisfied with anything, what you're doing at the moment, I'm very happy for you. But like the moment that you start to just suffice yourself to like doing what everyone else is doing at the cost of success, that's when like I won't want to back whatever you're doing. You know what I'm saying? So like I'll have kids who will go in and be like, I want to make music like this person, that person, whatever, blah blah. It's like great, yeah, hell yeah, like that's awesome. Like, but at the same exact time, like you need to evolve into who you are eventually.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one thing that like a lot of people don't realize is that the part of taking inspiration versus stealing versus like, because there's always the quote of like stealing like an artist, like if you are very very good at doing something just as good as somebody else and you could just find the smallest way to make it your own, nobody will ever be able to tell the difference where you got it from, who originated from, like all that
Absolutely.
stuff.
Even big artists still draw inspiration
like,
from the people before them too, so that it happens all the time.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that like and like I there's big artists out there who own platforms, labels, and have a lot of people under their wing who eventually are taking those kids, those new kids that they're fucking with, helping them by working with them or whatever, putting them on tour shows, whatever, like making them do a remix for them, any type of association. But truth be told, they're doing it because they're fond of what they're doing. And in some way, shape, or form, they're probably taking inspiration from them. They'll never tell them because if somebody like for example, like, and I'm not this type of person, but if a Liquid Stranger or an Excision came to me, did all that stuff with me, my attitude would stay the exact same no matter what. Like, but that's a big problem too. Is like that's where a lot of ego grows in this industry, and it is the absolute downfall of some of these kids. You see some of these kids go up and then straight back down.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's nuts. There's like they just think like, oh, I got like that cosign, I'm here. I'm staying.
There's two sides of this. Like one is making your first break. That's a huge first step, obviously. But the second thing is once you get there, it's like you have to stay relevant. That's like the majority of your career is like staying relevant. Like once you've grown a brand, and obviously you want to keep growing and evolving, like you've been saying. But like I think one of the biggest things is just like how do you stay relevant? Because there's so much music coming out all the time. There's so many different artists now that flood we are a very very saturated industry with all the different artists and all the different subgenres. So I think one of the biggest things is like staying relevant.
Yeah, for sure. I think like mainly like everyone has a like X factor about them. For example, like something like a John Summit, like, and this is just from what I see, and like I'm on social media all the time. I don't really like tweet that much, but like I scroll through Twitter a decent bit, and from what I see from him is that people love him for him, and I think he's a pretty cool dude. Like I don't necessarily like. I don't fuck with the mentality of a 24/7 vendor, but like good for him. If he's staying happy and healthy at the end of the day, like good for you. Go for it, bro. But I just feel like, for example, like his X factor is his personality. He is such a likable person to the people in the house music community. Same thing with like Subtronics. Like not only being like an amazing, like producer and artist and somebody puts on such an amazing show. He is such a likable person at the end of the day. I've never met anyone who hates him as a person. Who's always like, oh, he's an asshole. He's an asshole. He's an asshole. Never heard that, he's somebody who carries like the entire
I
package,
talk about that all the time, and I'm referring to like having the whole package and stuff on the show. He's one of my favorite examples because he like how he even does like his merch and like his kendama stuff and like all that stuff. Like he definitely has a whole package, and I talk about him all the time on this show. So one thing that I want to dive into with you is, you mentioned previously you're from like New York area, right? Have you moved to LA yet? I was listening back to Dubs of FBI's podcast that you did in October, and you said you were talking about moving to LA. Has that happened yet?
I moved here, I think, like 2 days after that, actually. That was the last podcast I did.
First of all, why did you move to LA? What was your kind of inspiration of like, obviously I know like our industry, like it's like the capital of our industry, but with Wi-Fi and stuff today, and you see people kind of staying in their hometowns, what really caused you to move to
LA? Truth be told, there's like a couple of things. One being like, so I was like living in Staten Island with my family. Staten Island's a very like small thing. Like you're between Brooklyn and Jersey, so you're like just on your own little island. Everyone knows each other. It's very like it's like a small town mentality, but 1 million people live there. It's so cluttered. Like not even kidding. I don't even know what the stats are, but there's probably close to well over 500,000 people who live there. It's one of those places where I just didn't feel comfortable as a person and like as an artist. Like nobody there ever cared for me and never really cared for the place. Like I could go out there like rent free. Yeah, exactly. See, I called it. Yeah, I could go out there like completely rent free. Nobody knows who the fuck I am. It feels amazing. And then not that like I'm gonna say like, oh, I can't walk in my house here. Like same thing here. But if I go to shows, like there's no scene for music in Staten Island. There's nothing local. The only thing I had was like my family and like my hometown friends and all the kids I grew up with. And then like Brooklyn, Manhattan were kind of like all fucked up. Like Webster Hall is like super, like it just like sucks. It just feels like shitty to go to Webster sometimes now because of like what it used to. Yeah, because like it used to be grimy. It used to be like the coolest place in New York. You had the basement. You had like trap shows, dubstep shows, rhythm shows every Saturday. Upstairs you had like all the big dudes who would play. But now it got bought out by AEG and it feels super just like shitty to be there. It just feels like what's the best way to say this and like the nice way to say this? It just feels like a bunch of dudes in suits run it now instead of a bunch of people who just love music. It feels very
distinct difference, yeah.
Yeah, and like you can tell that. And then Brooklyn Mirage was like cool, but I mean now it's amazing. Now it looks like incredible.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Bastive just played there. Shout out Bastive. Yeah, that show looked insane. The whole like wraparound, almost like those stretch like curved TVs. It looks like that, but giant production version of that. It's insane.
Yeah, it's so sick. But yeah, like I don't know, the scene was dead in New York kind of at one point. And not to mention too, just after like COVID and shit, I just felt like a lot of my friends moved. Like the only like other people I could really recall, even living in New York at this time nowadays, that like I was homies with and excited to see on a daily basis was like Rovlo. But me and him literally grew up down the block from each other. But yeah, like it just was a shitty place to live. And then like I was like, oh, I could move to Brooklyn City, but it just was pointless. I was like, I'm gonna pay the same thing. Might as well move to LA. Never have to deal with fucking snow, rain. Shitty people. I like the thing is like here's my thing. Everyone in LA is super nice, but they're fake as fuck. In New York, everyone is real as fuck and they're mean as fuck. So you're gonna get the version of people. You're gonna get the version of people that you would actually rather be around than the people here who are just all fake as fuck and like nobody cares about each other. Everyone acts like they do, but nobody actually does, and that's just how it is. But like. I don't really care. I can weed all those kids out easily. They just don't exist in my mind. I'm from New York. I can understand how to simply just make them not exist in my mind. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I don't know. It's just like a different quality of life, and I kind of just wanted something new. Kind of like went through some shit like throughout that last 2020, and then I was just like, I think I just want to change the pace of my life, go live out here, see how I feel. And like I've
How's
been out here for
everything
a
been
year. It's
with
good. Yeah.
music and stuff since you've been there? Has things kind of started to look different at all as far as your own career and your brand?
There's definitely some shit that's gonna pop off soon. I can't
Yeah, don't
really
give
like.
anything away if you don't. Yeah.
I don't know the exact. Yeah, I don't know the exact details behind a lot of stuff, but mainly moving out here was to also, try to play more SoCal stuff. Because like even if I ever got offers to come to LA, it would suck. Because like flying from New York to LA is always really
Yeah.
expensive, and it just like was never worth it most times to like play out here. Even like my first ever LA show, I played Brian's and Lemonade in 2017. I wasn't like I was like kind of just starting to get like a little pop off at that time. Just came off tour with like Uzi and a bunch of other people, and I'm pretty sure they offered me like $500 or some shit like that. So worth it. I mean, like they didn't
Yeah.
have a big budget at that time either. They were still like kind of a growing party, and my flight was like $485. I was just like, fuck
Yeah.
it, I'm doing it. I don't care because I know this is gonna be insane. I still think about that show to this day because like that was like the best like welcome to LA. Like the picture I have from that night has been my PC background for the
That's
last like
super
5
cool.
years. It was a very pivotal moment to me that proved a lot to me as an artist
That's
too.
awesome.
Like, and it felt good to play to a crowd that took every part of me in. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter what I played, they enjoyed it. Like, and then you go to places like New York, and it's very snobby. Believe it or not, I feel like people are there for one reason only, and the crowds are just very hit or miss. It's very like the smaller shows is where it's at when it comes to New York. The big stuff is kind of like because it's mass promoed
Yeah.
and like you got a bunch of kids from like NYU
Yep.
and shit who just want to party and get fucked up.
Have you seen the documentary of Woodstock '99 on Netflix yet?
No, I want to
Absolutely
watch
insane.
it though.
Like tearing down the stage and like starting fires and like
Yeah.
it looked like a nuclear bomb went off by the like in one of the scenes. Absolutely crazy. But yeah, I feel like that's what happens when like it's like mass marketed sometimes and you don't have like the right. I mean, back then they didn't have all the rules and regulations that like EDC has today, but. Yeah, well, how quickly things can get out of hand. I don't know. Like that's the other thing is like in the EDM community, the people who are really about like the peace, love, unity, respect stuff. Like I feel like that wouldn't happen as much. But then it's like when you mix in like the college kids or the people that like don't really fully understand the way of like this community. You know?
Oh man, I call them the Chads and the Brads. That's what they are to me. Like and there's no disrespect because like people like listen there. I've seen kids who look like they would hate electronic music at my shows, and they wind up being the coolest, biggest fans ever sometimes. And it's amazing because those are the kids that like want
Yeah.
to show you love and all that stuff. Want to take a picture with you. But dude, it's yeah. I'll never judge a book by its cover, but you can definitely tell who's there to like, have fun, headbang, mosh, do all that stuff, blah blah, and all the people who are kind of sitting in the back like this, with, like don't know what to do type shit. But yeah, I don't know. The crowds are very hit or miss. That's why like festivals like Lost Lands and Bass Canyon and Wakan Fest are very different than the EDCs. Because even the EDCs, like, there are people out there who, like, even like some of my friends and shit who are just like, oh, I would love to go to EDC. I would love to go to EDC. It's like, nah, I got to take you to, like,
Yeah,
Lost Lands, bro. And they're just like,
my-
yeah, but, like, I want house music, too. It's
Yeah,
like,
my
fuck
favorite
you.
my favorite festivals still, and I listen to psytrance, I listen to drum and bass, I listen to house music, I listen to everything, I listen to normal trance music. I like almost every genre in EDM. But my favorite
Yeah,
festival,
yeah.
just for like the crowd and like the atmosphere and just like the family environment, it's gonna be Lost Lands forever. I just went to EDC for the first time, and I waited like 14 years
Yeah.
to go to EDC. And at the end of the weekend, I was like, that was fun, but my favorite festival is still Lost Lands.
I want to, honestly, my biggest goal is probably playing, like, Rampage. I just want to, and especially with, like, the idea of, like, my sound in Europe, like, kind of like kind of is something I really want to see because like on the borderline of like when you think of Rampage I think of like straight tear out dubstep rhythm
Yep.
and like drum bass, But I would love to hear, or I'd love to see what the kids there would do to like, the weird, like how they would react to like the weirder, like hybrid trap shit and like, just like the stuff that I would want to play at like a
Yeah.
festival like that. But yeah, I want to play
Well,
Rampage.
more of the like the experimental bass slash like hybrid trap stuff. That's almost it's a lot more American. That's like it's kind of almost stems more from America than like drum and bass is more like European and like I think that might be the reason. It's just more like your
Yeah.
style is a little bit more Americanized than or people in America like that sound more than like outside of the United States. I had a question for you about your name because I think the what I've learned about your name has a lot to do with what we are going to talk about in a second. First of all, what just give me
Mhm.
like the meaning behind the Black Sheep name and brand.
It definitely starts out with like a little bit of a story, but to give you like the best way possible, when I started, I was DJing house parties a couple years ago. I had met my homie Nick, and he was like, "Yo, we should link up," and I'm like, "Let's do it." And we link up, and he's just like, "Yo, I have this project I'm about to start. It's called Black Sheep. We should do it together." And I was like, "Let's do it." But then I was just like, I thought to myself, like, okay, cool. He parted ways, in like no way, shape, or form. He just got a really good job opportunity. Like we still actually still talk every time I'm about to drop new shit. He's like, send that to
That's
me.
dope that he still supports you.
Yeah, he's come to shows
Okay.
like on the East Coast and stuff because he's from Jersey. And he always tells me he's like, I miss it, man. But like, but I'm like, man, you got racks nowadays. Like you got a really good job opportunity. I was like, you take that. He was also older.
Okay.
He was like 25 at the time. I was like 19. So
Yeah.
like life was way different. And then like I just took the name and kind of ran with it. But like for me, like the whole idea of Black Sheep is that like everyone's welcome. It's like no one is the actual Black Sheep. Like I'm not. Nobody is. Like I want everyone to feel welcome into just being part of who you are and what you want to be. And like it's kind of almost the opposite in a sense because I felt like the other way was too cliche. It's like, yeah, I can say I do it for the kids who feel left out and the kids who feel like they're the black sheep of maybe their friend group or their family or at school or anything like that. I always deemed myself as like one of those kids that like I knew a lot of people. Like I wouldn't say I was particularly like a popular person in high school or anything like that. I knew a lot of people, but I always kind of like knew at the end of the day it was just always me. Like it always came down to me, and like all those people, whether they would want to be relevant in my life or not, it would always be like a 50-50 thing. And lo and behold, I don't talk to any of them.
Dude, I talked to like maybe two people from high school.
No.
Like maybe two.
Yeah. I mean, all the people I talked to in high school, I are kids
Yeah.
that I grew up with. So like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
knew them from elementary school. It wasn't even like oh, I met you in high school. We knew each other since fucking we were like almost in diapers. And we're still like.
Well, at that
really
point,
good
your
friends,
families are
but
friends and stuff
yeah, it
too.
was
So
kind
it's
of
like,
like
oh, your mom talked to my mom yesterday. It's like you're kind of connected to your family too at that point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like mainly one thing I like realized when I got out of high school, I was like, I never like actually felt like I really ever fit in with those people. Like it wasn't that they ever made fun of me or bullied me or anything like that. It was just like I felt like it was kind of a friend group that was built upon just like where we lived and our classes and who that person was friends with, this person was friends with, all that stuff. But yeah, like when it comes down to the whole black sheep idea, you know, I definitely always want to make people feel welcome and just like, at the end of the day, it's just like
Yeah.
you aren't the black sheep, like because you have, you have what I have. You know what I'm saying? Everything that I put out there, I want people to also have too. And I feel like that's also a big problem for me. But at the same exact time, like I don't want that to be a big problem for me. So that's why I'll never stop helping other people. And if that ever holds me back,
Yeah.
then like so be it. But at least I know I died on the best hill
Absolutely.
possible. You know what I'm saying?
That's a very cool way of looking
So
at
yeah,
it.
I just try to take everything as like I don't want it to be like this pessimistic, like depressing thing. Like I mean, lo and behold, I'm like definitely I'm never have been, never will be like the happiest person in the room. But like I don't like want like that to be like, oh, like we are all the black sheep, we're like the outlaws of the family and like all that stuff. It's like, well, yeah, we might be, but like the only way to to like really put that together is like everyone just comes together. You know, everyone is who they are, and you know, like I just want everything and like my shows to always be a safe space to like have fun, do what you want, just don't fight and don't be an asshole and don't do something fucking stupid, because that's the point of when I don't.
I will stop
nice.
playing music
when
right
I'm
now.
not nice. I'm not nice. Yeah. Well, a couple of years ago, some kids got into a fight at one of my shows in Florida, and I got on the mic and I was like, "Yo, chill the fuck out! Like that's not, you know, take that shit outside. This isn't the place for that." And one of the kids yelled at me, and I was like, "So help me God!" I like even said on the mic, I was like, "So help me God, I come down there. Like, you get the." I was like, literally out, get him the fuck out. I don't ever want to see that kid ever again, because like he said some stupid shit to me, and I was just like, man, like when I'm nice, when I'm just chill, like
Yeah, you seem like a very outgoing person.
Yeah, well, that's like one thing too. Is like when I first started, like first like 2 years up until I was like 21, 22, I would go to the shows and like not talk to anyone, and I would like leave with such regret, because I felt like I was so socially awkward in those situations, because I was so young too, and everyone was way older. I probably wasn't even supposed to be there half the time, more than half the time, because everything in New York's 21 plus basically. And like, yeah, like I wasn't even supposed to be there half time. I just was there because of like, you know, homie like snuck me backstage or whatever, or got me like a AA van, and like I was able to like make some smaller connections at that time. But yeah, I always kick myself for being like socially awkward.
What changed, or what taught you to change that?
Just pushing myself beyond my boundaries, you know, like getting over like the like anxiety. Like I have a shit ton of anxiety, and like I always have, and I probably always will. But like, my thing is like I'm not the type of person who just likes to cope with things with like, you know, I don't want to like go and like take like meds for it or anything like that. I simply just like was like, this is something that is like in my brain that just doesn't function the same way as other people's, and that's fine. But I want to push myself to get through anxiety and learn how to actually take care of it. But like I also know like a lot of people who
need it,
who take like, you know, like whatever on like any type of medicine for it whatsoever. And they honestly probably feel better than me most days. But shit, I know, like I have a really close friend, and whenever she like thinks she forgot to take her meds, she has fucking awful days. She has awful days, and I'm just like, dude, I'll take those awful days, but then learn how to control myself with those awful days, instead of like trying to hide it behind like, you know, some like Zoloft or whatever the fuck it may be, you know. Like, but there's, like I said, no shade to that. I know tons of people who take them, and they honestly have way less anxiety than I do, and I wake up fucking every day with like, why am I so anxious, you know? Like,
I know it stems from different places for different people. Where do you think yours is kind of stemmed from?
So my brain is like really stupid, and it doesn't stop thinking.
I feel that.
So like, you know, there's a part of everything where it's like overthinking, and you know, maybe just like certain things. Like I get a lot of anxiety on flights, and you know, one way like I always try to cope with it is like listening to music or like playing game on my phone, or just like, you know, getting Wi-Fi and kind of like, you know, just like scrolling through the internet for endless hours and melting my brain slowly. But I think like I remember this is funny, but this is like a very pivotal conversation I had with somebody about anxiety. I had really bad food poisoning, and I had to go to the hospital. And I remember I was sitting there, and like hospitals just make me really anxious because you know, you're surrounded by so much stuff, and it's so frantic, and there's so much going on, and it was making me really anxious. And like I remember they were like doing something where the lady was like testing like my she was like doing like a blood test on me, and she was like, why are you shaking so much? And I was like, I don't like hospitals. Like, and when I get like really bad anxiety, my hands start to shake, like, and my hands were like shaking really bad because I don't, it's just such a weird place for me. And there's like babies screaming. The guy next to me is like basically practically fucking dying. I'm just like, dude,
why help me?
Yeah. And she was like, why do all young kids have so much anxiety? And I was like, well, you have to understand, like, there's a couple of things, but like one major thing is like social pressure from the generation before us. Like the way our parents moved it, like I'm 27, I'm completely single, I make beat bop music and play video games all day. Okay, but it's completely different. I'm very happy my parents are very understanding of it because I have two older sisters, so they've learned to slowly kind of understand the age of the internet. And my parents fucking go on TikTok all the time now. It's so funny, but you know, I was like, social pressure from the generation before us is like a huge thing as to why a lot of kids my age have anxiety. Not to mention, too, truth be told, one thing that definitely stems from it as well is if I don't get good enough sleep or anything like that. I was like, people my age are literally fucking programmed to have the mentality where you can never stop working, and if you stop working, you're failing, and that is going to make anyone anxious. You know what I'm saying? So at that time too, I was going through so much shit. This is 2019. I was going through so much shit because that was my first year where I was stepping into I was really pushing the hybrid trap quota and doing all this stuff. And I remember I was sitting up all night every night trying to make different songs. And that was when I had produced the whole my whole Dark Matter EP. And I remember struggling because I wanted to be better at sounds. I want to do this, I want to do that. And I one up myself, but I knew that I was taking a huge fucking toll on my mental health during that year, and I was partying a lot, and I was traveling and playing shows still. But I knew my mental health took a big tank that year too, because I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating right. I was, fucking drinking all the time. Don't do drugs, but even if I did do drugs, that probably would have made shit worse. Who the fuck knows? But yeah, it's just there was so much shit going on at that time, and I remember being so anxious about everything, and just being in the hospital at that point made me even worse. And I remember explaining that to that lady, and the look on her face was and I was like, do you have kids? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I guarantee you bag on your kids all the time to stop doing things that you didn't do when you were their age, and you were technically doing better than them. It's you have to understand, for even for me to live here, it's you move to wherever the fuck nowadays, you're easily paying upwards well over $1,000 to live in an apartment now, or a house, or whatever the fuck, right? And it's just you guys were buying houses for $150K, they're $1.5 million now. The social society, or the social pressure from society is fucking insane.
Yeah, it's almost back in the day. I remember
I was
wow, there's only a select few of people that are millionaires. Now it's if you own your own business and you're relatively successful, that's becoming more of a standard. You can't even afford a freaking house, like you just said, with the it's millions of dollars just to buy a house. And so it's the level of how we used to look when we were kids. And we were I want to be a millionaire someday and make all this money. That bar is now set on I want to try and be a billionaire. There's more billionaires than ever now.
Yeah.
Yep.
You look at the world right now, and this is a very anxious state in my mind too, where I'm holy fuck, dude, shit is kind of getting a little crazy with this, the way the economy is moving. I mean, you can even see it in firsthand. I talk about this all the time, obviously, because this is a huge part of my job and a huge part of a lot of my friends' jobs. Look at how expensive it is to fly right now. That is fucking crazy. It's insane. I took a 2-hour flight from Jacksonville to New York to go visit my family, and that flight was $330.
What the hell?
Just one way. Yeah, it's a 2-hour flight. One way.
That's insane.
That's fucking insane. And it was on United too. And I was sitting. I was the last seat on the plane. I was like, dude, this is crazy.
Insane.
But yeah, no, there's.
They got to make for if everything else is going up. If all the prices are going up, then they got to have their employees in mind, and they got to find some way to pay them more. So it's you almost have to ask more from your customers in order to pay your employees, and then it trickles down because then yep. Inflation. It's a fun topic. I'm curious to see if a lot of your anxiety. Have you ever had anxiety over or even cared about what others have thought about you or the music that you make?
No, not at all. I've always claimed to myself I do this shit for myself and no one else. And in the nicest way possible. I could give a fuck less about what any of those kids think about me at all. Like, honestly. And I think, like, mainly that stems from, like, I'm never going to try and impress my peers. Like, if somebody tells me they don't like something, I actually probably will appreciate them more than the people who would gaslight me and be like, yeah, bro, this is sick. Like, fuck off with that. I don't like that at all. I hate that, actually. That's, like, my biggest pet peeve is, like, and that's why when people send me feedback or, like, ask me feedback and all that shit, I give them, like, the realest, honest point of opinion that I possibly can. It's just to help. It's just to help each other out, you know. Like, or even somebody just sends you something or shows me something, and they're really stoked on it. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it a stack with you. Not for me. It's not for me. It's well produced. I think you could maybe do this or that, but like, it's not for me. You know, and like, I feel like more people just need to be like that. I think like one thing that I think we all need to do as artists is train each other to understand rejection in the best way possible, because then no one's ever going to be upset with each other. You know what I'm saying? So if like somebody sends me some shit for a collab and I don't like it, I'm like, no, I'll pass. Like, I won't do you dirty, because I'm not going to name names, but recently I had sent an idea to somebody and they were like, yeah, this is sick, send me the stems. And then like, I sent it to them, and then ghost. You're better off just being, bro, I don't want to work on this anymore. All right, cool, thank you. Like, no problem. But now I don't. Now I like can't fuck with them anymore. Now I can't fuck with that person anymore. Like in my mind, like that person, like they don't exist anymore. And it sucks too. It sucks, but like it's just how I have to be with people, because like if you don't have the balls to just be straight up honest with people. That's where that's what I'm talking about too. It's like the LA mentality. Everyone's fake as fuck. It's like, that's so fake. Just like be like, yo, like I don't fuck with it. I've done it to so many people, and I feel like they respect me way more for doing that than being like, oh, okay, cool.
I'd rather earn someone's respect than earn someone's like likability, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, and like the way I grew up with like my parents, like respect is a very big thing.
Yeah.
And that's where that stems from, you know? It's like, you know, I grew up around a bunch of Italians who, if you did something disrespectful, they would just be like, get the fuck out of my face. I don't want to talk to you. Go, you're going to think about this. You're going to learn your lesson. You're going to come back to me. You're going to tell me why you're sorry. But they're not going to say anything to you. It's just how they'll treat you. Just, no, I don't want to talk to you. Get away. Get away. Go think about what you just said to me or whatever the fuck. And I'm just like sitting in my room like, fuck. You know? Like, but no, like my parents really installed like that like respect. Like if you respect me, I respect you, you know, and that's the way it should go, you know. And I'll always respect people, even if I don't like them that much, unless you do something that really, really pisses me off. Like, I will respect you. You know what I'm saying? That's like the boundary I have.
Yeah. Well, what's coming up for Blvk Sheep? I know there's one thing that is really pressing that's coming up later this week. You're releasing an EP. What was the writing process for that EP?
So it's 4 songs. They kind of all range in genre. So it starts with Interrupt, which came out on the Prophecy compilation about a month ago. That's just like a very straightforward kind of just like weird, I wouldn't say like necessarily left field based shit, because that's you know, like more IDM stuff, whatever. But just like kind of like weird wook trap vibe song that I kind of just like. It's funny. I just made it, and I made like the like half the song, sent it out to a bunch of people, and a bunch of people played at Lost Lens last year. I was like, maybe I should finish that one. So starts off with that. And then we go into Arrival with Josie and Focus. You know, that song's like super melodic, kind of like a more dubby song. And then the final 2 songs are Scud, which is my record with VRG. And for me and him, you know, we are, I feel like the 2 people who have pushed this kind of hybrid trap stuff the most. For us to do a record had to not only be a big banger, but it had to be a song that we stood behind. And that record takes a lot of inspiration from, sounds like wave and funk and like the intros and the breaks, but it also takes a lot of, it shows like the things that we focus on the most, where it's like straight ignorant shit to like crazy flows to just like absolutely just wild, just like drums and like all that stuff. And I've never said this on record, but like it's funny. But SCUD stands for Stop Calling Us Dubstep, because it just like at some point it's like, as much as you can affiliate me with that, I will never be that. And me and him always talk about the weird middle ground of like we're too trap for the dubstep labels, too dubstep for the trap labels. So we're just everyone's here and we're just in the middle,
which is dope because you guys are carving your own path for people, even people that really like your sound, that are inspired by your sound. You can later bring them up after you guys. So, and I love both your guys' music. VRG's a freaking genius.
Yeah, and then the last song is called Afterlife. It's a song I did with like one of my best friends. His name is Apollo Vega. I've worked like multiple. I mean, this is our third song under my project that we've done, and I'm pretty sure we have upwards of like 40 to 50 other songs that we did for his project, more just hip hop and pop based stuff, some like pop punk, some indie, some bedroom pop, like all kind of that like sadder stuff with the guitars and hip hop drums, or just like more acoustic vibe stuff. But yeah, me and him, it's more of a kind of like a just melodic song. It's like wave, like I guess like future bass stuff. Something to kind of like it builds up and then it kind of comes back down slowly, getting you on a good note.
All music should make you feel something, whether it's sad or happy or whatever it may be. So as long as it's provoking emotion, I think it'll be good. Are you planning on making any more? Like, are you planning on past this Bassrush release? Are you planning on working on any more hip hop stuff, or what kind of direction do you want to go on that side of things?
So me and Apollo right now have I forgot, I counted it recently. It was like close to 40 unreleased songs together. Obviously, not everything's gonna make the cut. I believe I want him to do an album, but I think we also want to make new stuff as well because a lot of it's outdated, or just revamp it. And then I have a couple of songs with my homie Vampry. He's a rapper out of New York. He's like one of my best friends as well. And me and him have done a lot of stuff. Mainly, I've definitely tried to sit back and do like a lot of A&Ring and just kind of like try to find the kids who I think are on the cusp. Just mostly like try to find kids on TikTok who I think are going to blow up. I've had a couple of people that I definitely found really early, and it's good to see that they're doing like insanely well at this point. Like Glaive and Eric DOA, they're like hyper pop kids, but I remember finding them like 2 years ago, and they had like maybe like 4,000 or 5,000 followers.
What?
And now they're like signed to Interscope,
That's
like
sick.
world tours, like everything. Yeah, it's crazy. I like eventually. I think for me, whenever I decide to like put in the towel for electronic music, that's where I'll end up going. But I also really do pride myself on not being like a one-trick pony. I don't mean this in like a disrespectful way, but if you are an artist listening to this or watching this and you can only make one thing, that's not good. And like, sit back and learn how to make other genres. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like my next EP, I was thinking about the other day. There's one song that I know I'm gonna drop that's just straight drum and bass that I know is probably gonna be like I know a lot of people are gonna play it, and I know it's like something so left field from my brand.
Yeah.
But like I don't care. Like I there's even one song that I was thinking about, doing one song I thought about maybe for like next project too, and it's basically it's kind of like Dominate from Space Laces, where the first drop is house and the second drop is like dub trap stuff, but it's the opposite. So the first drop is like dub trap, it's more like trappy stuff, and then the second drop is just house. But yeah, just like I want to continue to push everything as far as it goes. expand into every genre, work with anyone, any genre. I have no limits as a producer, and I think that's something that a lot of people need to learn. Is that like just because you make dubstep and you play every big festival doesn't mean you can't I don't know, maybe like start like working with other artists outside of your genre. I just feel like if you put a select group of people in the studio
Yeah.
with Billie Eilish, none of them would survive. I know I can,
Yeah.
but I know a lot of kids can't. I know because they're gonna think to themselves like, oh man, like I'm like they're gonna either make the most boring shit ever that like would be so typical to her, or they would try to convince her to sing on like like melodic dubstep song or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like it wouldn't work, man.
You said whenever you decide to hang up the towel in EDM, what does that kind of look like for you? Like, what's like your long term plan there?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
really like what Kenny Beats did, where he was just like he just I mean that was like a different thing though, because that was like the decline of Loud Pack as a group, and there was so much probably going on in the back end that like people don't ever will never know about, maybe some legal stuff or whatever. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like I think like only time will tell that really. Like at this point now I'm 27. Like I don't see it like happening within the next couple of years, but I also think that that's also going to depend on what happens with electronic music, because say if EDM really isn't like a thing and all these festivals stop and people stop buying tickets and all that stuff, it's going to be harder to transition out of electronic music because
Yeah.
everyone else is going to try and do the same thing.
But you definitely do want to eventually make that transition back into your original roots of what you were making, like kind of more the hip hop rap type of stuff.
I want to be like
Yep.
I want to be like Mike Dean. I want to be him. I want to be like the old ass dude that everyone goes to. That's just like a sick producer. He just curates like the craziest shit and works with like the most insane artists. Like
Him and then also a little bit different, but Pooh Bear is also another one of those producers.
yeah,
Like
oh
Justin Bieber
yeah,
and all
Pooh
those
Bear's
top artists.
fucking incredible. Well, the same thing like Fred again too is like now he's doing like his own thing, but I did like the background research on that dude. God damn, he has hits. He has hits. He is like every major Ed Sheeran
Yep.
song that was on the radio from like the last 5 years. Like, holy fuck. But yeah, like I mean like I'd be willing even nowadays, like if I got in the studio with like somebody who's like my favorite artist at the moment, or something like that. I mean, if I go through if I go through my Spotify playlist right now, I literally couldn't even tell you the only electronic song that I can even see on like the top kind of like maybe 10 that it's showing me right now
Yeah.
is that Fred Again Swedish House Mafia feature song. But like other than that, it's just like a bunch of like these random artists that I'll find. I guess the closest thing that I listen to
Okay, yeah.
electronic music is like wave and like funk stuff. So I listen to shout out Brothel, shout out Barnacle Boy, shout out Forerunner. They're like three of my really good friends, and they're all some of the best artists. But yeah, like mainly, like lately, I've been listening to just a lot of like more of the hyper pop sound stuff. Suicide Boys just dropped a new album. Like, oh, I would give like I would give my entirety of my right arm
That'd be
if
wild.
Suicide Boys ever wanted to make a song.
That'd
with
be
me.
wild.
Like honestly, like yeah, I love them. I love them. They're awesome. But then again, too, I would never step in the studio with Suicide Boys and
Yeah.
even think about making electronic
Yeah, it would
music
make sense.
ever. It wouldn't come to my mind. But like, unless they ask me, I would never do it. But like, that's like the motive that I kind of want between,
That's dope.
hip hop and electronic music. It's like if I step in the studio with like, somebody who's outside of the electronic music community, unless they hit me up to make electronic music. I had somebody hit me up who was pretty big who wanted to make a song. I sent him Leo tricks and I was like, talk to this kid. He's the guy for you. Like I am not that guy.
cool.
Like
Something's coming up, and just next month is your plan. Lost Lands finally. I know that you were brought up for a bunch of sets
Yeah.
with all your friends last year, but you actually have the opportunity to play yourself this year. How are you feeling going into that?
I'm super excited. I'm super like grateful, and I like honestly, that was my biggest goal this year. Was just like, it wasn't play Lost Lands, but it was play just one big festival. You know,
Is this
and
have you played a
I'm
festival in the
super,
past, or
super,
is this your first one?
super. So I played Snow Globe in 2017. But that was like if I'm only really counting, like
Yeah.
I played like a bunch of like Wook Fest and stuff. But yeah, Snow Globe was my first ever like big festival I played. Um, but yeah, Lost Lands it's gonna be fun. I'm trying not to think about it because it's still so far away, but it's so close. You know, I don't want to like stress myself out yet, but I know it's gonna be a pretty stressful thing for me because, as we spoke about before, it's like I don't
Right.
ever care about what anyone says or what everyone thinks. This is a moment that I have a lot to prove to myself, not to anyone else. This moment is strictly for me. Like it's for me and no one else. And like I just hope like yeah. The only thing that makes me nervous about it is like I was talking about this. Is I hope I don't have to like I hope I'm not
Yeah.
playing at the same time as somebody really big, but I hope I'm
That's
not
yeah.
playing at the same time as somebody I really want to see. I don't give a fuck about that. Like that's like the downside of playing these festivals. I'm like, damn, bro. Like,
Yeah.
especially that. Like, I want to go see everyone. As I don't listen to music in my free time, that's why I still thoroughly enjoy watching it live and like love
Do you know?
the energy.
You probably know who
like,
Arm & Hammer and obviously probably
yeah.
Midas as well. They went their set time on Wampy Woods was the exact same time as Excision's like main set, and like they're pretty big artists, but just at Lost Lands because they were up against Excision, it was like a quarter of what the stage could fit people wise. It was. So you have that problem too. Not that like again, not that it's a competition, but it's like
Dude.
you want a crowd there for you too.
Yeah, of course, of course, of course. I mean, I've had so many people tell me that they're like, I don't care who's playing, I want to see you. And like, I appreciate the hell out of that. Like, announcing that, like, I held on to that for like 3 or 4 months prior, and like, I didn't tell anyone. And then like, the only people I told my parents because my parents like were well
Yeah.
aware of what Lost Lands was because I went last year, and I was like, I remember coming back and I had like no voice, I was exhausted, and my mom was like, "How was it?" I was like, "It was good." And she was like, "You gonna play next year?" I was like, "I promise you I will." And I called her,
That's
and
awesome.
she was like, "Let's go." And I was like, "See, I told you I would make it happen." But yeah, no, I'm just more excited to finally like because I feel like I'm more confident than ever right now in everything that I have, in my brand, in my music, and just like my performances, everything that like I'm just really really stoked to
Yeah,
play
absolutely.
on a platform like that. For
Well,
me
I
to
will
watch
try my
music,
best to be there
know?
because I am going to Lost Lands as well. So hopefully we'll run into each other and be able to hang out for a bit. Because you were brought up and people brought you up on stage. Is there anyone? Do you feel the need, or do you have any plans of bringing anyone up on you during your set?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Don't give anything away, but
We're definitely gonna premiere. Yeah, I'm gonna premiere a couple songs with some people, and then of course, if I'm playing the homie song, like
that's awesome.
more than happy to bring them up on stage and let them wall out with me for a song or some shit. But yeah, definitely planning on premiering some cool stuff. Me and VRG is actually staying in my house right now,
Sweet.
and we're working on something really cool. But I think definitely the place is gonna be that we're gonna premiere that is Lost Lands for sure.
Couple last questions. What is one thing that you wish for other up and coming producers within our scene to take away from what you've done so far in your career?
Um, if I always could tell people three things, it's believe in yourself, do it for yourself, and like last but not least, just like have fun, be a good person. Like
Yeah.
being a good person takes you a long way in this industry, believe it or not. Because when people
Yep.
find out you're a dickhead, they will not fuck with you. But yeah, just be a good person, have fun, make music for yourself. Don't care what anyone thinks. Just like just do it because you love it. Don't think about doing this for the money because the money takes a really long time to come in. So yeah,
Awesome, man. Where can the listeners find you at, and how can they support you?
just at Black Sheep Music on all socials, and if you want to support me, just listen to my music, and like I think a big thing right now.
Listen to that new EP.
Yeah, true. Go listen to my EP. It's out now. If you don't, I'm gonna come to your house and I'm gonna wear my shoes in your house. Um, but yeah, and I guess like one thing that I always tell people too is like If you want to support an artist, the best thing you can do is just try to keep up with them on social media, especially
Yeah,
right
dude,
now. With the
algorithms
way
are fucked right
Instagram
now.
works and all that stuff. Like, yeah, a like, a comment, a share, anything like that means way more to me and probably everyone else than you ever know. But yeah, just at Black Sheep Music on everything, at Black Sheep on Spotify and Apple Music.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, brother. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Likewise, thank you.